Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline to discuss Francis Bernard and the current state of the BYU linebackers in that defense, Blaine Fowler, our dual threat analyst. Blaine, how does the Francis Bernard redshirt news affect the BYU defense in your professional opinion?
Well, it hurts because Francis is a rare athletic talent. So the skill set that he has to be able to run and be good in space, in pass coverage, and also have the size and physicality to come up and support the run is rare. And so he's like perfect in terms of his build and his athleticism and all that for that position. Now, keep in mind that if you've watched Kalani Sitake defenses over the years or Lisa Tuiaki defenses over the years, that position has been a hybrid position. Most of the time, the person playing that position has been like an undersized linebacker, kind of a slash between a safety and a linebacker. They've called him different names. They've called him a rover or whatever. And so to have Francis, he's like a linebacker-sized guy that can run like a defensive back. When you lose that, you lose a rare talent. But they'll just fill in with guys that fit the mold. That you've got Adam Pulsifer, who's taken a lot of snaps at that position over the last week and looks pretty solid and runs well. You've got Isaiah Kafusi, who's done well. Unga, who moved down from defensive back a year ago to linebacker and can run and cover space. They moved Sam Baldwin down a week or so ago from safety to that position. And Matt Hadley even could move down and play. He understands that position well enough and has the skill set that he could come up, and he's real physical and can make that transition. So they have a lot of guys that can fill that role. So there's not going to be a huge drop-off in the defense. The problem is you don't get very many guys like Francis Bernard that have that combination skill set to be able to do both things so well.
Yeah, and that's where I think BYU loses a step a little bit, and we'll see. Francis Bernard was so dynamic. Blaine, he's making a one-handed catch. The play after, Kainakua gets thrown out, and the game could have exploded. He makes this one-handed grab. He's in the backfield. He's lining up with tight ends. He's dynamic in that way. Do you feel like BYU has a guy or guys that can get close to that kind of play?
Well, I think that in the pass coverage area, they'll be fine because they have a lot of guys that can be good in space and be good in pass coverage as well as Francis. The difference is they don't have a lot of guys that are as good as Francis in pass coverage that are 235 or 40 pounds that can step up and take on a pulling guard or take on a tight end and set the edge defensively and be as physical as he can be. So to me, it's more of a hit in the run defense game than it is in the pass coverage game. I think they're just fine in pass coverage. So now the thing is, do they situationally substitute, play more physical guys on run downs, rotate in guys that are better in pass coverage on pass downs? The luxury you have with Francis is, doesn't matter what down it is because he can do it all. And so now they need to find that. Or do they find one of these guys that's solid in pass that steps up and they go, oh, wow, we had no idea this guy was this physical. This guy can be our every down guy. And that's what they're looking for in this next week and in that first game.
Blaine, I feel like the linebacking core, one of the most talented, arguably in BYU history with this trio coming back, Fred Warner, Butch Powell, and Francis Bernard, I feel like they go from an A+ now kind of to an A-. Is that fair? How would you grade the linebacking core now?
They're still an A, and the reason is because of the three, you're losing the three. So when we're talking about the big three, Butch Powell is the heart of that defense. He sets the tone. He is just so aggressive and has such an aggressive mindset, and he's around smacking people that he raises everybody's level. Fred is the best player on the football team, period. Like, he's a crazy freak athlete that can do everything. And not only that, he sets the example with work ethic. Isn't it nice to have your most talented player also be your hardest working guy? You don't get that very often, and they have that in Fred. So I'd go 1, Fred, 2, and then Francis. As good as he was the third guy at linebacker. And so I'm not taking him from an A+ to an A-. I'm taking him from an A+, they should dominate, to an A right now. And we'll wait and see who ends up getting the bulk of the downs at outside backer, whether it's Pulsifer or Kafusi or Unga or, one of these others, whether or not we drop them down to an A-. But with two backers as good as Fred Warner and Butch Powell, I think you can still be a dynamic group, and that still will be the heart of the defense.
Okay, Matt Hadley, who was probably a starting safety, maybe at least in the 2 deep, he's now a linebacker. A little light, 200, 205, 5'10", a little smaller, but his brother Spencer was a fantastic linebacker here. What role do you see Matt Hadley playing among the depth?
Well, you don't move your starting safety down unless you have plans for him to be a big part of what you're doing. So I would not be surprised to see him start depending on matchups and certainly play a ton at that outside linebacker position. Remember, at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about it being a hybrid position, and that linebacker has a lot of pass coverage responsibility. When you look at Hadley, he's the most physical of the safeties they've had. So if you're looking at somebody that can move down there and can be really dynamic in pass coverage, cover a lot of ground, be great in space, that also has the potential to step up and smack people, well, he's the obvious choice from that safety group to move down to that position. That's why they've done that. I think he's a real physical player. He's got a real physical mindset.
Yeah.
If he does what I think he can do in the run game, then everybody's going to go, wow, that was a brilliant move, because he's going to be really good in pass defense.
Is he sort of a nickel back in this situation where BYU is almost running a 4-2-5 if he's on the field a little bit?
That's the case, and remember that look at defenses that Kalani and Elisha have run in the past. They've really kind of been 4-2s. But they haven't had a guy like Francis Bernard where they can go, you know what, we can play a straight 4-3 because that guy can get out in space and cover. So this is really kind of back to what the philosophy has been with that third backer in this type of defense, really being a hybrid guy, a cross between a safety and a linebacker. And Matt Hadley fills that bill really well.
Can he, in terms of depth at this linebacker position, is Matt Hadley a guy that could play behind Fred Warner, Butch Powell, and Francis Bernard? Could he move to all three positions?
I wouldn't put him in the middle unless he put on a lot of weight, because remember, Butch has great leverage, unbelievably physical. There's a lot of times when he's scraping, he's taking on guards and tackles. And I don't know that Matt has just a sheer size at this point. If they had moved Matt over 2 years ago and let him go up to 225 or 30, he has the mentality of playing there. But at his weight right now, I think he's going to be reserved to play those outside spots and be playing in space and play on the edge. He's not a guy that you want to have to step up and take on a guard and stalemate him in the hole. I mean, he's really, really physical, but he's a little light to do that.
Every college football team goes through these type of things, and depth is always tested. But what does this do to the psyche of the current BYU football team?
You know, Francis hasn't practiced in almost a week, and so I think they've already wrapped their heads around it in anticipation. And the guys that have played there have been good. This defense has been good through fall camp with guys like Pulsifer and Isaiah Kafusi and Unga in there. Sam Baldwin moved down, and he looked good, especially in pass coverage. And so I think they feel really, really confident with the depth they have there. I mean, I don't want to minimize. This is a big loss because Francis is a unique athlete. But I don't feel like this defense in their mindset feels like, oh, now we're going to have a drop-off. I feel like they feel we're so good everywhere else, and we're so deep behind it in the secondary that we're going to be just fine. I really believe that that's the mentality, and I don't think they're just trying to talk themselves into it. I think they actually believe that.
Today there's a scrimmage happening currently at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, probably to determine kind of where the 2s and 3s fit. I don't imagine the 1s will get a lot of run in this per se, but what does BYU need to learn today in the scrimmage as they prepare for Portland State and LSU?
You're exactly right, Jerem, with your first comment, and that is that they know who the 1s are right now. So this is just polishing the 1s, putting them in situations, and this is really not that it's not really a scrimmage. It's more of a practice that everybody can, so they're not going to line up and scrimmage 90 plays. They're going through a regular practice over at the stadium today. I'm going to head in as soon as we're done. But they also want to continue to polish the kicking game, and they're starting to work now. This is almost like the couple of days in of prep work for game 1, where when they call off of the sidelines, this position group or this, everybody knows exactly what they're doing. So they're trying to make this a well-oiled machine right now. The physical part of preparation for the first game is complete, and now they start to get mental reps at who's in when, so that they run like a organized, perfectly oiled machine come next Saturday.
Blaine, great stuff. Always appreciate the time you take for us and for BYU Sports Nation. We look forward to seeing how BYU responds to this first bit of adversity in the 2017 season.